Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a silent war. A war for the very control of Africa's ports. But forget ships and soldiers. This battle is being fought with something you can't even see: data. And trust me, the winner here is going to redraw the entire map of global trade. So, what's this silent war all about? I mean, when you think of a port, you probably picture massive cranes, huge container ships, right? Concrete and steel. But the real fight, the one that truly matters today, isn't for the physical stuff. It's for the invisible lifeblood that flows through it all: the data. Yeah, this is a total shift in strategy. For years, it was all about who could build the biggest, best, hard infrastructure, the cranes, the docks. But now, the real prize, the thing everyone's after, is the soft layer. Think of it as the port's digital brain, the code that controls literally everything. And right at the heart of this digital brain is something called a port community system, or PCS. This thing is the port's central nervous system. It's what manages every single thing, from tracking a container to clearing customs. And that's why it's become the ultimate prize. Because let's be real, in today's world, if you control the data, you control the trade, period. So in this high-stakes digital game, who's making the biggest move? Well, China has rolled out a seriously powerful weapon to try and dominate this space. It's a platform called LOGINK. Okay, so just how big is LOGINK? Get this. It's plugged into the real-time data from over 5 million trucks. It's got a network of more than 450,000 users all feeding into it. And it's already got deals with 24 major ports around the world. And we're not talking about small players here. We're talking about critical hubs right in Europe's own backyard, like Rotterdam and Hamburg. But you know, Logan's most powerful, almost devastating feature, it isn't the tech. It isn't even its massive scale. It's the price. The Chinese government is offering this unbelievably sophisticated platform for absolutely nothing. It's free. Now, if you're a port operator, how do you possibly say no to that? But that free price tag comes with a huge question mark, right? Especially when you look at China's 2017 National Intelligence Law. This law legally requires Chinese companies to hand over data and cooperate with state intelligence if they're asked. So, what do you think happens to all that incredibly sensitive shipping data flowing through LOGINK? Okay, so China makes this huge move. You'd expect Europe and the West to come back with something equally big, right? Well, their main counterattack? It ended in what you can only call a spectacular failure. They launched this platform called TradeLens. It was a big deal, a joint project between the shipping giant Maersk and tech powerhouse IBM. It had all this advanced blockchain tech, but there was one big problem. It was a paid subscription, a private sector product, and that just couldn't compete with LOGINK's free, government-backed model. By 2023, TradeLens was history, shut down. And the lesson here was just brutal. What the failure of TradeLens proved is that in a geopolitical fight, having the fanciest technology doesn't mean a thing if your opponent has a better state-funded strategy that lets them give their product away for free. It's a completely different ballgame. So, with their main digital weapon now off the board, you have to ask, what's Europe's plan B? How are they supposed to even stay in this game? Well, their answer is something called the Global Gateway Initiative. On the surface, it sounds huge, a 400 billion euro fund to give developing nations a clear alternative to Chinese money. But as we're about to find out, that massive headline number, well, it might not be quite what it looks like. But hold on, before we even get into the money, we need to zoom in on what's really at the core of this whole conflict. This isn't just about software or cash. It's about a concept that's becoming one of the most important ideas of our time: data sovereignty. And a case from 2023 in Belgium was a huge wake-up call for everyone. A Chinese logistics company called Cainiao, which is part of Alibaba, was accused of espionage. Now, their defense was pretty clever. They said, hey, the data is stored on servers in Germany. But here's the catch. Investigators discovered that even though it was stored in Germany, it was still being processed through the Alibaba cloud platform back in China. And that right there gets to the absolute core of data sovereignty. It doesn't matter where the physical server is. The only thing that matters is who has the keys, who can actually get their hands on that data, and whose laws do they have to follow when they do. Okay, so we've laid out the pieces on the board: the free super platform, the failed counterattack, the fight over data control. So who's actually winning this invisible war? Well, There are basically two different schools of thought on where things stand right now. Hypothesis number one is that Europe is quietly staging a comeback. The people who believe this point to the billions being invested by European and UAE operators. They point to that huge 400 billion euro global gateway fund, and they'll tell you that Europe still has a real tech advantage, especially in things like port automation. But then there's hypothesis number two. And frankly, a lot of people think this one is more realistic. It says that China's dominance is actually becoming permanent. The argument goes like this. LOGINK is just getting too big, its network effect is almost impossible to beat. That global gateway fund, critics say it's mostly just old promises repackaged, not new cash. And at the end of the day, China's strategy is just way faster and more agile than the slow, bureaucratic EU machine. So where does the evidence point? Well, most analysts are landing squarely on that second hypothesis. When you look at the failure of TradeLens and all the criticisms swirling around the global gateway, it really seems like Europe is struggling to keep up with China's incredibly focused, long-term game plan. And one of the biggest reasons for this seems to be a major disconnect. The EU is pitching its global gateway as this geopolitical project to help itself, to get access to green energy and minerals. But what are African nations actually asking for? They're asking for investment in the basics, jobs, healthcare, education, the very foundations of a modern economy. So this whole invisible war over Africa's ports really leaves us with a massive question about our future. As data becomes, without a doubt, the world's most valuable resource, are we all moving towards one single global system for trade and logistics? Or are we watching the world split apart into competing digital blocks that can't even talk to each other? You see, the fight for Africa's ports is really just one battlefield in a much, much larger digital conflict that is going to define this century. We hope this explainer gave you a clearer picture of these incredible stakes. Thank you so much for watching.